All right, a little bit about myself. My name is Stephanie Atkinson. I'm the CEO of Compass Intelligence. We're a market research and consulting firm. We focus on enterprise, some consumer, but mostly enterprise, B2B, mobility, and Internet of Things, technologies, primarily conducting research with technology vendors, but we love getting feedback from the end users. I think what's unique out there are so many market research firms out there that talk to vendors every single day, but not many that really get the pulse of the CIOs, the CTOs, the operations managers, those that are actually implementing technology. So I want to dive into a little bit, before we get started, a quick exercise. Raise your hand if you use emojis. Don't be shy, because we know you're using emojis on your texts. So do you think that you're really good at it? Okay, I have a little bit of an exercise for you. This is where I might use the mic. So related to our conference today, manufacturing, industrial, logistics, supply chain, automation, IoT, all of these big things, Industry 4.0. I got a couple of news stories that I've translated into emojis. I'm going to show you the first one. Anyone want to take a stab at it? What do you think this storyline is? What do you think this news article is? Looking at these emojis. Anyone? Tim, I know you have a good guess. Just guess.
Well, it must be state of Oregon is thinking about farming and looking for the money and...
I don't think it's hot.
Using IoT to optimize farming.
You're getting close. So this one, yes, you're close, Nadine. So Oregon man steals a John Deere backhoe worth $800,000 as they found 6 or 7 other pieces of equipment once they found him. Using GPS system is how they located him, using a logistics company who gave them the GPS coordinates. So next one. Puerto Rico. Someone's got to have a good guess on this one.
Hurricane Harvey.
You're close. You got some content here.
Hurricane America. It's Hurricane Harvey.
All right, I'll let you in on this one. So after Hurricane Harvey, U.S. government used unmanned aircraft and drones to access and visually check for oil leaks off the Texas coast. So I wanted to kick us off with a fun little exercise. Let's get our brains a-moving. We've got a lot of great content to talk about today. If you have questions during my presentation, feel free to ask, but we're also going to leave some time at the end to talk. And I'd love to hear from you guys. So I want to first start off with what I shared at last year's IoT 6. Who all attended last year's IoT 6? Good. So these are some things that I threw out last year. I had a one-slide presentation. I think it was part of our analyst panel. And these are some things that I shared. I think a lot of these are still kind of relevant, but one thing that's popped up this year, and that I think that we're all inundated with hearing it, who's got a good guess? What topic? What technology, or kind of a general technology topic that's been inundated? Artificial intelligence. Here you go. So, so I'm going to dive into our presentation, but I wanted to kind of share those topics from last year. So first off, I don't have a lot of... Do we have this screen working up here so I can see? I don't want to keep looking back. So first I want to talk about kind of where we are and what are some of the key activities that we're seeing from an overall shift that we're seeing over the past few years and moving forward. So on the left-hand side, we have, these are some of the information areas, the asset areas, the data and the processes that we see. We're moving from a static and sedentary stage to portable, mobile, and integrated stage. We're also looking at data that is manual, it's legacy, it's sitting in silos. It's really just not usable. To data that's automated, it's intelligent, it's adaptive. Also assets that are really following the same mode. And the next thing is data collection and data storage. We've been collecting all this data for so long, but what are we doing with it? So now we really are getting serious around what we do with this data. Is it smart? Are we using it to actually do something for our business? The next thing is we're looking at information that's more informational. We're actually reacting to issues and problems and challenges as opposed to being proactive. The data is also kind of mute. It doesn't really say anything. The assets are kind of mute. We're moving into this predictive model. You've all heard of predictive maintenance, predictive analytics. All of these things are, we're moving to a more interactive data and intelligent data world. And then the last piece is really, in terms of our work activities, we're labor intensive, we're people driven, we're using human intelligence. That's that me? Bespoke information. And then also data collection. We're just collecting the data. And we're moving that to more additive. We talk about additive manufacturing, robotics. That's probably another one outside of AI that we're hearing a lot of information on this year. The other things around artificial intelligence, a lot of new educational and even master's degrees, PhD degrees in data science. That is a very big and growing area. And also, we need our younger generation of workers to come in with this kind of skill set in order to prepare for the future, especially in manufacturing. Okay, so our ecosystem. Let me get rid of this mic. I'm not going to dive into this. This is really more of kind of a visual of where we are in terms of the ecosystem, from suppliers to facilities to the distribution to our end customers, our clients. And those clients may be other vendors. They may be also end users. At the top, I think I added some information around manufacturing execution systems, production, assembly, maintenance. A lot of these topics that you see are more around what activities are kind of in each of those 4 phases. This presentation will be available for download later, so you can read through this. Okay, so let's dive into industrial manufacturing automation. Some of these key technologies are really impacting the market today. I'm not going to go into and dive into all of those, and I think that Sam has a really good presentation he's going to be sharing that I noticed that you're going to have some additional information around some of the technology components. So what are some of the related technology areas? When we think about Internet of Things, a few things pop out: fleet management, fleet tracking, asset monitoring and tracking, vehicle telematics, cold chain technology, where we're actually shipping and distributing products that require a certain temperature. So that kind of monitoring is even more vital to that asset. Some of the traditional technologies such as RFID, Bluetooth, Zigbee, there's so many out there. But today what we want to really learn from all of you is kind of where are we and what are some of the things that you're really trying to learn. Because I think as we get into our groups, especially tomorrow and the next day, when we have our one-on-one meetings, we really want to learn from all of you guys because you guys are the ones that are making these decisions each and every day. And you're probably also inundated with some of these technology terms, and you're like, I don't even know what to do with that. So that's there's this gap here in the market that we want to make sure that we capture that time with you. So what's happening now? So I'm going to ask a few of you in the audience, because I only listed a few here. What are some of the benefits? Why are we doing this today? Why are we automating? Why are we innovating? Innovation breeds profit. Cost savings, process improvement, enhancing our customer experience, remaining competitive, also being competitive. Client expectations. Sometimes the technology comes to us because the clients want it. And then, of course, safety. What else? Any other benefits? Or anything that you're doing internally at your company that's really a driving factor that may not be on this list?
Stay relevant in the future.
Stay relevant in the future. That's good. Anything else? I'm sure we'll learn a lot more from you guys today, but this is probably the biggest one. These are the biggest ones that we hear of from our customers. All right. There are 3 areas that I want to talk about today in terms of where automation and IoT are taking place today. And this is really just touching the surface. And this has been happening for a while. You know, I think a lot of us that have been in this industry from a technology perspective, we were talking about machine learning and M2M, and then all of a sudden everybody's calling it IoT, and you know, the landscape keeps getting bigger and bigger, but at the end of the day, it's a bunch of different markets, a bunch of different application areas. And from an enterprise perspective, IoT is not relevant. What this means to my business is relevant. And so I think that's one of the things that we're probably going to learn a lot more from you guys today is what's relevant to you. So the three areas, assets, process, and logistics, these are the three areas where we see a lot of activity, a lot of movement, a lot of trials, projects, and implementation. These are the three areas. In terms of assets, it's both tracking and monitoring, knowing where they're located, and being able to monitor those assets. Monitoring may come from anything from temperature and moisture controls to is it intrinsically safe, so electrostatic issues in some particular plants, that's a big issue when it comes to assets. Looking at volume and quantity and flow, there's so many temperature and sensor gauges that are very important to certain manufacturing processes. So this is really why manufacturing is so relevant in the industrial Internet of Things. Primarily revolve around energy and oil, heavy equipment, smart cities, and manufacturing. Compass Intelligence just recently finished some research around the Smart Cities Benefit Index for InterDigital, their coordinate platform. And we've continued to learn so much in that space, driven around what's happening from an infrastructure and a public safety perspective, and what's happening with transit and routing and all of these great things that citizens are just like, that's why we need to automate, because we have to improve our citizens' expectations of our city. And one of the things I was talking with a reporter earlier today was cities are becoming competitive. If you don't have those services and that automation in your city, then you may not just win that corporate headquarters that you're trying to drive that Amazon to, right? Everyone wants Amazon. All right, this is what we do and what we do all day. Compass Intelligence crunches numbers. We do a lot of forecasting and modeling, and a lot of our customers want to really see how big is this market, and how much should we spend, and how much is everyone else spending? And I think when you think about manufacturing and industrial, it's much more vast. I don't put those in silos. So I think that, and I also like to say when we talk about smart cities, it's almost like a mini municipality. Because colleges, higher education. When you think about a university, it's like a mini municipality. They have utilities, they have parking and transit and all of these things. So sometimes you even have industrial or even manufacturing needs that might even happen in other external verticals that you may not have even thought of. So when you're thinking about your industry, it may even be important to learn what's happening in other industries because there's a lot of overlap. So 35 million employees, about 3 million firms. This particular sector represents about 15% of employment and about 165 million in total information technology spend. From an IoT perspective, about 35 million industrial and manufacturing cellular connections today. If I added in satellite and even fixed line connections, it would be much larger. In terms of IoT revenues, about 400 million in IoT cellular connectivity revenues in the United States alone, much larger when you think about the global landscape. And then in terms of IoT services, just the services component, about 350 million, and then 950 million total. We're getting close to that $1 billion mark just for this sector alone. All right, I wanted to do a little bit of a dive into just the fleet piece. If I went into each and every subcomponent that is relevant to our audience today, we would be here for days and days and days. So I'm diving into fleet. We did some research around fleet management and fleet tracking last year. And I won't dive into this, but as you can see on the right, from a competitive perspective, the cellular providers and the connectivity providers, that are providing that services. There have been some changes over the past few years. Core and Wireless, Sierra Wireless acquired Numerex. We're continuing to see consolidation in the industry. We were just having a conversation about the Sigfox and Ingenues and low-rod companies out there, and how there will be some of those that will die within the next 12 months. So there's quite a bit of consolidation happening in the industry. What does that mean to you? Well, when you're evaluating technology partners, you definitely need to choose those partners that are going to be around. You're going to want to choose those partners that really have a strong presence in this space, and even if they're acquired, you know that they're going to be part of your business and serve you right. That's probably the scary thing about IoT, I think, when you're choosing technology partners, is the fact that we will continue to see quite a bit of consolidation in the industry, and a lot of M&A activity as well. What are some of those big brands in fleet tracking? You got UPS, you have companies like Hughes Telematics, Maersk, a lot of big shipping and distribution companies, all the way down to those that just deliver packages and manage transit for logistics, services around big corporations. It's a very big market. This is just a small sampling. So other things to think about, when you dive into fleet management and tracking, you have all these little mini components that make up that market. Think vehicle telematics, driving behavior, speed management, fuel management, all of these things that are only coming about because we're automating, we're leveraging sensor technology, we're leveraging cellular Internet of Things technology, we're developing and launching services that are wrapped around that, and we're actually managing our fleet, either internally or outsourcing that to a third party. Okay, what do I want to take with you guys today? First, before I get into that, I want to say that, I want all of you guys, we do have a very nice group of people that I think that we have enough people here where we all should get to know each other. I want everyone to walk away with some key learnings. One of my goals is to make sure we have a summary paper and research report. It's not really a research report, but this is the best primary research you can do, is at these events. So we're going to put together a summary that you all will have to download, and we'll make sure you guys get access to that. So that'll be one of our goals. So if you have any recommendations or any information that you think might be relevant from any of your sessions, see me, and I want to make sure that it's included. Okay, so from a decision maker perspective, those that are, I think I'm going to rewind it back a little bit. Usually when we talk to those that are making decisions in IT, it's usually someone in the IT department. That's not what IoT is about. IoT is coming from so many different directions, so many different areas. Manufacturing even more so. You have operations managers. You have building managers. You have security and surveillance. It's a vast group of decision makers. So that also means that you might have to first compartmentalize some of the goals that you might have in your own department, but you have to plan across. And what we're finding that's probably one of the biggest challenges, that they're not only seeking help from vendors and from partners and from advisors, but it's a very big challenge in the marketplace in terms of trying to get everyone under the same decision-making process. Also, budget, the same thing. A lot of budgets are siloed. We have our own, this is our money, but money's going to have to come across. We're especially when we're talking to these smart cities, it's a challenge. When you start to talk to legislators and government entities, it's even more of a challenge. And then next, stop looking for what's here and look for what's missing. What's missing? And I think a lot of that has to do with your own internal research, talking to those on the factory floor, talking to your customers, talking to those that are running operations, that are running security, because those things that are missing generally are things that can be solved with technology. Sometimes it involves some kind of IoT solution. Sometimes it might be something that you already have invested in and you're not even leveraging today. Okay, so I would say that all involves things like challenges, concerns, employee feedback, client feedback. And one of the things that I wanted to leave, and I actually got this quote last week because I was at a convention in Vegas, do not go where the path may lead, but go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. That's Ralph Waldo Emerson. That kind of goes back to the stop looking at what's here and look for what's missing. Work closely with your tech partners and even the non-traditional partners. That's another thing that we're finding in our world of IoT and industrial automation is that there are a lot of non-traditional partners that are highly skilled, more specialized, and have the relationship or the ear of that customer, where even a company as large as, say, Microsoft may not. And that's why Microsoft continues to build out this massive partner program. And that's why a lot of other big companies are developing these massive partner programs. Because really, some of these specialized vendors and some of these specialized service providers and platform providers, they know your industry. So I think it's really important to really focus in on who your partners are. Blaze a new trail. Automation is actually the new competitive factor to offer unique customer experiences. I think that's all I have. These are some of the companies that we work with today or have in the past. A lot of big tech companies. Any questions? Comments? What are you hoping to learn from our event? What are you looking to take away from IoT 6? This year it's much more focused, and we hope that we're giving you guys that focus. Any comments, questions for me or our advisory members? If not, then maybe we'll, question?
Thanks. I'm a sponsor, Blaine from Vantic, and I'm interested to learn how ready the audiences, the attendees are to really embrace IoT and the stuff you were talking about in your presentation. You know, for a lot of years, people have been talking about this stuff, but I sense that we're now getting to that inflection point where people are actually doing it now, and so that's what I'm interested in finding out more about.
Thank you. Over here.
It's good for me. See what exercise I get.
I'm with Arizona Public Service, and what we find is, Arizona's the largest electric utility, and we're owned by Pinnacle West, so a Fortune 500 company. What we're finding from our peers and from other research companies such as Gartner is in certain areas where we're at in the advanced analytics space, in Internet of Things, either behind the meter or in front of the meter, there is no precedent in our industry. So we're looking around for benchmarks and finding that in some aspects there are no benchmarks. We're the first that step foot. So we're looking to other industries to see what sort of pain points you face, what sort of obstacles or ideas you might have come across that could help us understand, because we are a slow-moving industry. My company's 133 years old, and we're not going away as long as there's electricity. So the challenge is, how do we catch up in a risk-adverse situation where everyone is waiting for everyone else to take the first step, and it falls upon us to take the first step, and how have other industries accomplished this?
That's good. Yeah, I think that some of those that are blazing the trail would love to hear from peers and peer industries to really kind of pull in whether those key learnings, because I think if we're not sharing that kind of information, we don't want to repeat the same mistakes. And I think we keep hearing that when it comes to security and breaches and things like that. And I think those are the kinds of things that are eye-opening to us, that we have to start listening to our peers and even other industries that are maybe 10 steps ahead of us before we get there. Anything else? Good. Nadine?
You were saying that they were doing analytics. And I think one of the things that I've heard back from companies doing analytics is not to define what you want from it, but to just look at the raw data and let it tell you what's going on. So don't go in there with like any preconceived notion about what to expect, but to look at it and look for the anomalies and look at the trend of look at what that data is actually telling you. And that's probably a better approach. Like Stephanie was saying, kind of like, find a different path rather than preconceived idea about what's to happen.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of putting two pieces of data together and looking at that correlation. But that data's there. But you may not have seen what's happening there because you haven't brought those two pieces of data together to look at the correlation. I mean, some of those statisticians, those data scientists, those are the people that we need. Any other questions, comments?
Quick question. What's the mix of the audience?
Yeah, good question. How about we, do you have any stats on that, Spencer? The mix of the audience in terms of, I don't know if you know off the top of your head. Maybe we can do a show of hands.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, who works in the manufacturing industry? Raise your hand. Okay. Who works for industrial type companies, energy, utilities, construction, ag? Who works for universities? Banking, finance? Anybody from banking and finance? Retail? Transportation? Yeah, there's quite a few, I think. Transportation? Transit? Any other industries? Government? Pharma? Semiconductor, okay. How many of you guys are IT decision makers or making decisions for the technologies that are happening at your company? And how many of you are technology or technologists or vendors that are providing services or products or equipment or hardware platforms? Okay, good mix. Does that give you a good kind of indication of our? You know what we'll do too is in that final paper we'll show you guys our matrix. I think that's good information to share the demographics of our audience. All right. Oh, another question?
I'd be curious to know from folks, what are the barriers preventing them from making the moves that they want to make? And we heard one over here basically said, I'm a public servant and I have no money, so please give me some and I'll do something. Is that what I heard?
It's legacy.
No. Oh wait, no, wait. I'm super old and I can't do anything. Please help me. Was it that one? Yeah. Yeah, regulated, risk averse.
Risk averse.
So what's preventing people from doing what you want to do?
Or did you have a question or comment, Steve?
No,
Steve?
I thought he was going to make a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, our biggest hurdle has been just educating the business and helping them understand what IoT really means and everything surrounding IoT, because we've got meters and such all over the organization with tons of data, but everybody's focused on, operations and major capital projects and such. So getting the business leaders educated has been probably the biggest hurdle.
Right, there's still that gap from an informational perspective as to what does this mean to me.
In government, you have to go to the end and see how you want to use it. Because think of it, all you hear, the privacy of it. So if we could track you, Stephanie, your whole day, would you like that in government?
Absolutely not.
Well, we have to make sure that we balance the business transformation with the governance and the privacy. Someone from Harvard put all these data sets together, and it was pretty alarming. They were able to track someone going to their doctor's office, through cabs, walking certain areas, from getting videotaped and being able to understand that. So we just have to be cognizant of that, and I think in government,
Even more so.
yeah, even more so, just understanding the power of what we have, because we have, a lot of sensitive data
Right.
in governmental databases.
And requirements to keep that data
And
secure and private.
just make sure when all those data sets get on these websites of all these governments, understanding really what you want out of it. People are just putting these data sets, not understanding that maybe some privacy could be, tarnished because of that. So.
Yeah.
Before anybody answers a question, could they say who they are and what company they work for, please?
All right. We have time for one more.
Hi, I'm Kuldeep Pujara. I'm from American Airlines. What is preventing us is, from our perspective, industry is still fragmented and it's not mature. When we try to deploy a solution, we look for a solution that's going to work at 240 airports across 45 countries.
Scale,
So
global.
that's part of the hesitation on are we there or not.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's challenging because some of the vendors are regional, but they're very good at what they do, but they may not have the capability to service an American Airlines, right? So yeah.